Welcome back to A Walk Through the Ages. I'm Pastor Bobby Harris.
I'm Mark Phillips.
And Mark, today we get to start chapter 5, Patriarchs and Prophets.
That's right. Cain and Abel.
I know, it's two brothers, two characters.
That's right.
Right? We were joking around about this just a minute ago, but it really does show that the family unit, it just never has changed, right?
Been dysfunctional since the start.
It has, hasn't it? So it was very interesting because as we read, we see that Abel had the Spirit of God in him. You know, he obeyed God's law. He did exactly what God had asked him to do. Mm-hmm. But yet, Cain was just the opposite.
Yeah. Well, Cain did most of what God asked him to do.
That's truth. But
it was the part he left out that was the important part.
It was, wasn't it? You know, and that's true. They both built the altar. Mm-hmm. You know, they both brought a sacrifice.
Yep.
But in the end, it wasn't the lead up. It's not how you start, it's how you finish.
That's right.
And Cain did not finish properly, did he?
No.
That was an interesting thought. He permitted his mind to run in the same channel as led Satan to his fall. We really see that correlation there, don't we? Mm-hmm. That Satan, we see this correlation between Satan and Cain. You know, they both had had the same character in the end.
Yeah.
It was all about them.
Yeah, and it was a free choice on both of their parts.
It was, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And there was some correlation here later on in the chapter. We've seen that, that there was really the upbringing and all the other stuff between Cain and Abel were exactly the same. Mm-hmm. They had the same parents, they had the same upbringing, the same living environment, but yet they chose two different paths.
Yeah.
One focused on God, the other focused on self.
Yep. And that's just the history of the whole human race. Every one of us has that choice that these two brothers had.
And we really do see that. You know, we see those who choose to follow God, but then we see those who indulge the desire of self. Mm-hmm. And that hasn't changed throughout history.
No.
We've seen those two sides.
Yeah.
And that's actually a pretty powerful thought.
Yeah. And you know, Cain could have made the right choice.
Yes.
But he just didn't. Now,
that was interesting too, because like I said, we talked about there were two brothers, erected the same altars. You know, they both brought offerings. They brought the separate offering, but Cain brought the wrong offering. But just like the angels and Christ did with Lucifer at the time, Abel and his family tried to work with Cain. Mm-hmm. and talk to him and try to explain where he went wrong.
Mm-hmm. And it just made him mad.
It
made him even more mad.
You know, and it's an interesting thought there too, because it always seems that when we know we're wrong, sometimes that just makes us madder and rebel even more.
Yeah.
And it's not just Cain or our other descendants. I mean, we do the same thing at times.
Yeah.
It's almost like, well, I know I'm wrong, but I'm just going to defend my position anyway.
Yeah.
And try to win the argument. But that's the problem. As I said, his gift that he presented to God wasn't the gift that God had asked for.
Yeah.
We too do the same thing.
Yeah.
And I don't think it matters what church we're a member of. We still do it.
That's right. You know, it's so easy to argue yourself out of following what God says. People are always looking for an excuse not to do what he has said to do in the Bible.
Oh, yeah.
And that's the same path Cain got on.
It really was, you know. Instead of producing fruits and giving his first fruits to God, he delivered the fruits of his labor that well, the fruits of his labor is what he gave to God. He thought his works were sufficient, whereas God said, no, you need a slain lamb.
Mm-hmm.
To me, that's just incredible thought.
Yeah. And Cain's attitude was that I'm doing God a favor
Yes.
by worshiping him. I deserve to get something in return.
No, I agree.
And that wasn't Abel's attitude. Abel was like, this is what God wants, and I understand what this means.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that this sacrifice that I have to make of this animal is pointing me forward to the ultimate sacrifice that's coming. And Cain was like, I don't need that.
No, he relied on self.
Yeah.
And like I said, Satan did a good job with it.
Yeah.
Good job convincing him of those same lies. But that's again, it does bring us back to the fact that Cain obeyed all of the deals, but he partially did it. But God never asked us for partial obedience, does he?
Mm-mm.
He asked for complete obedience.
Yeah.
I see it throughout the world we live. I see it throughout so many different parts of life that we want to give half of our efforts to everything. Half of it to our relationships, half of it to our worship, or whatever it is. But we only want to go so far.
Yeah. I only want to give enough so that I feel okay with myself.
Or I get something out of it.
Or I get something out of it. Yeah.
No, I agree. And, it's the wrong attitude.
Yeah.
I hope that our attitude is, I study the Word of God because I want to be more like God. Or I love my wife and I stay not obedient to her, but well, that came out wrong too, probably.
Well,
but
she'll love it.
yeah, she'll like it. But we stay faithful to her because I love her so much, and that's the attitude we need, rather than I love you because you love me, or because I'll get something out of it.
Yeah.
But too often we have Cain's mentality.
Yeah.
Like you said, Abel grasped the importance of what he was doing, of that sacrifice and why it was there.
Yeah. And I guess Cain probably knew what it signified too.
Yes.
He just didn't care.
No,
he
that's true.
didn't see why that should apply to him.
Yeah.
So.
I agree. Now, here's something that caught my eye too, and I know our page is a little different, but Cain had the same opportunity of learning and accepting these truths as Abel. He was not a victim of some arbitrary purpose.
Yeah.
It's an interesting thought because we like to talk about predestination a lot of times. Cain was predestined to murder Abel. Or, Judas was predestined to turn his back and betray Christ. But the truth is, we're the only thing we're predestined for is to go into the kingdom of heaven.
Mm-hmm.
And then anything other than that, we choose not to do.
Yep.
Predestined does not mean what too often we want it to think, or we think it should mean.
Yeah.
We're all predestined to be the children of God.
Yeah.
But too often we choose to be the followers of Satan
Yeah.
and his dominion. And that's a sad statement. Cain and Abel represented two classes that would exist until the close of time.
That's true. You can look at the world today and you can see both of those.
You can, can't you? I found it interesting. I found the statement interesting because one worries about our focuses on God, and the other one's just the opposite. So there is no middle ground. Too often, Constantine, I'll wait to be baptized until I write him on deathbed. But what happens if you die before you're laying on your deathbed?
Yeah.
You just lose out.
Yeah.
I constantly tell people that you can't sit on the fence. You can't have 1 foot in, 1 foot out, because that fence belongs to Satan too.
That's right.
It's in for penny, in for pound, and nothing more than that. Or nothing less than that would be acceptable. Abel understood that there was no name under heaven, in heaven or under heaven, that would ever be an acceptable sacrifice but Christ.
Yep.
Whereas, like you said, Cain said, I can do it on my own.
Yeah.
You know, he probably said, look, you know, overall, I'm a good person. I mean, how many times have we heard that throughout?
Yeah.
You're one of my elders, so I'm telling you, a lot of people come and say, well, you know, I believe I'm a good person.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's not what we believe,
Yeah.
you know.
It doesn't matter if you feel like you're a good person. Whether you're a good person or not depends on how closely you're following what God has said.
That's true.
And whether you've accepted Christ as your substitute, because he's the only one that's ever been good.
Yeah,
And that's how you measure yourself.
it really is.
And that's a scary. A lot of people will recoil from looking at themselves in that light, because then you realize just how bad off you really are.
Oh, I agree. Well, it does come back to that we like our sin. And we would rather not look in that mirror and see and judge ourselves based on God's standards,
Yeah.
but on man's standards.
Yeah.
You know, we feel like if we can tip that scale to doing more good than evil, then we'll be okay.
Yeah. But that's not the way it works.
No, it isn't, is it? And that's where the problem with so many of these religions come from nowadays.
Mm-hmm.
There are too many denominations out there that teach that, well, I'm not going to tell you the pastor I heard on TV has said it, but he says, you have everything you need inside you right now.
Mm-hmm.
The only thing I got inside of me right now is a filthy rag.
Yeah.
And without Christ in my heart and in my life and guiding my life, it's all worthless.
Yeah. Well, she makes the point down here that this religion that Cain developed back then is the same one that we have today, that all false religions are based on this principle that man can depend on his own efforts for salvation.
Oh, I know.
And that all we need is, we don't need redemption, we just need development.
Yeah,
You know, you can be better than what you are, which was the lie that
that's true.
Satan told Eve to get it all started. You know, you can be better than what you are now
Oh, I agree. And
by yourself.
I think too many of our TV evangelists, we'll just say, have a tendency to be more motivational speakers.
Mm-hmm.
And you can do what you want, but just be a good person.
Yeah.
And it's just not the way it is.
Yeah.
We need the truth.
That's right.
And the truth is found in the Scriptures.
Yep.
And I think Christ has laid that out quite well for us. True faith, which relies wholly upon Christ, will be manifested by obedience to all the requirements of God. From Adam's day to present times, a great controversy has been concerning obedience to God's law. So it's from the very beginning. This
That's
is
right.
what the entire plan is about.
Mm-hmm.
You know, Satan is trying to continue to say God's law is not just.
Yeah.
And I think Callie and Alyssa did a great job of talking about that too.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
you could not change even one precept of God's law, because if he could, then it wouldn't be just.
Yeah. Well, if he could, there wouldn't have been any reason to punish
Right.
Adam and Eve. He could have adjusted the law to fit them
Yeah.
instead of having them conform to the law.
But then again, we would have found an unjust law.
Yeah.
You can't hold the entire universe accountable on one level and then not hold Adam and Eve accountable on a different level.
That's right. That's
Because
not
the
fair.
minute they do, it's an unjust law.
Yeah.
And Satan would have won.
He would have been telling the truth.
Yes.
Yeah.
You know, we want to play that these days. Well, you know, for Mark, well, you have your own set of laws and your own responsibilities and whatever else that
Mm-mm.
you can do because you're you.
Yeah.
But me, because I'm me, I get to do something else, I get to be something else, and whatever I do is completely okay because, hey,
Yeah.
I have a new, different set of rules.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It doesn't work that way.
No, nothing new.
Nothing new.
Nothing
And
new.
it does seem like it's kind of the way it started, right?
Yeah.
He that professes to know God and keepeth not his commandments is a liar, and the truth is not in him. John 1, 2, 4. 1 John 2, 4.
Yeah.
That is so true, isn't it?
Yeah.
We see that in the history of Satan. We see it throughout the history of man. And I think too many of the people we idolize fall within this group too.
That's right. That's right. It says here, when Cain saw that he couldn't
Yes.
get Abel to go along with him, that enraged him even more. It wasn't that Abel was going on his own way.
No.
Cain actively wanted him to join him, and when he didn't, then Abel had to be destroyed. He couldn't just leave him alone. He had to mess with him.
Well,
And that's the way sin is. Sin will never leave the righteous alone. They want to either cause them to fall or destroy them.
Well, and that's what Satan is doing, isn't he?
Mm-hmm.
Too often we see this idea of once saved, always saved, and all that. But what we see in reality is that Satan is working his best upon the churches itself. He doesn't need to go out into the world and bring them to him. He's got them.
Mm-hmm.
And not that there aren't good people in the world that are going to come to Christ. But he works even more diligently with those people that are professed Christians,
Mm-hmm.
that want to follow Christ, because those are the ones that he wants to pull away.
Yeah. Yeah.
This whole thing was just amazing.
Yeah.
The choice laid with Cain himself to choose to follow God or not to.
That's right.
The free will concept in there. This last part, I guess we're going back. You talked about that it angered him and he had to die, or he felt like Abel had to die because he didn't want to join in his rebellion.
Yeah.
This is exactly what Lucifer did.
Yeah.
Because he couldn't win over Christ and be on the same level or higher and exalt himself, he decided, okay, well then I'm going to take other angels with me. And because I can't exalt myself any higher, I'll take man with me too.
Yeah.
But then they all chose of free will to go or not to go. And then even when pointed out the errors and he understood his error and he believed he was wrong, he felt like he'd gone too far, so it made him more angry and was bound and determined to win.
Yep. And
it's the same process with Cain that played out with Lucifer too.
Yep.
And there's still so much more.
I know.
And time is running short already.
We're out.
I know, it seems like 20 minutes we should be able to talk about a lot more stuff, right?
Yep. Yep.
But the maybe that's the problem. Maybe I need to start doing the second half what Callie's been doing, because I always get started and it seems like I don't get to finish. I know, but we'll let her and Maria, I think, pick it up, and then we'll go from there.
Yeah, that'll be interesting.
It will, won't it? Well, I hope everyone's enjoyed it today. I'd say, Mark, this is, I think, one of my favorite projects we've ever done in the church.
This is fun.
And I hope, we're seeing more people join us every week. Alyssa, your daughter's joined us this week.
Yep.
Shad has joined us this week. And I hope we see more and more of our church members do the same thing and really see how much fun it is to sit there and talk about not patriarchs and prophets so much, but the Word of God itself.
Yeah.
It's wonderful.
Yep.
Well, I just want to thank everyone for joining us today. A walk through the ages. Mark, again, just thanks for being here, and
Well, thanks for
we'll
having
see
me.
everybody soon. God bless and have a wonderful day.
Yeah. See you later.